I say the word control, what comes to mind? Probably nothing good, right? Most of us don't have all the positive vibes when we think about that word. Because who wants to be controlled? Nobody I know. And who wants to be told what to do? Once again, nobody that I know. In fact, I bet you feel that more than anyone else. Between curfews and driving restrictions, attendance policies, athletic rules, and that one teacher who literally wants to control when people can go to the bathroom. I imagine it feels like everywhere you turn, someone is trying to have control over you, and that's super annoying. I think most of us would agree that we don't love the idea of being under someone else's control or being told what to do. We all want to do what we want to do when we want to do it. It's a part of being human. But here's the thing, as much as we resist the idea of being under control, all of us are, every single one of us. We would probably never say this way, but all of us are controlled in some way or another by our emotions, by our moods, and by our vibes. If you've ever been around young kids, you know that this is true. Take away their cookie, ask them to share their toy, and you'll feel bad vibes quickly. But it's not just a child thing. This is a teenage thing and an adult thing as well. Think about it. How many times have you seen an adult let their emotions get the best of them? Probably more than a few times. Sometimes our emotions take control, and when that happens, we don't always make the best decisions. In fact, before we go any further, I want you to take a minute and think of a negative emotion that has the most control over you. What's the one emotion that when you feel it, it almost seems like it's overwhelming and it takes you over? What's the emotion that shows up most often, sometimes without you even realizing it? Is it anger? Is it anxiety? Is it jealousy? Loneliness? Is it guilt? The list could go on. We all have one of these emotions. We may slam a door when we're angry at home, but when a teacher makes us mad, we don't slam the door. We may let jealousy control us when it comes to an ex, but we don't do anything stalkerish about it, or at least we shouldn't. So we can monitor our feelings and emotions to a certain degree. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But is monitoring the solution? What if there was a better way? What if there was a solution that went beyond just monitoring? So the thing that I love about Jesus is that so much of what he teaches is helpful for everyone. Whether you consider yourself a Christian or not, the topic is one of those areas. And he invites people to do something that goes way beyond monitoring emotions. The cool thing is that if what he says is true, then it has the potential to make us free. And isn't that what we all want? Freedom? So we don't want to be controlled by anyone or anything, including our emotions. And it seems like Jesus is offering a solution to that. But first, check out what some critics of Jesus had to say. So, in other words, why don't your disciples wash their hands before they eat? It's gross, right? But you have to understand, back then there was very little water. And when you did have some, you weren't thrilled of the idea of pouring it over your hands. But it was bigger than hygiene. These critics were bothered because of what it meant religiously. They were accusing Jesus of breaking the law of the elders. Forget that. So Jesus answers in sort of a genius way. Instead of coming for them directly, he quotes the prophet Isaiah. And if it wasn't totally clear what Jesus was getting at, he sums it up this way. In other words, Jesus is saying, you're not trying to lead people closer to God. You're looking to make power plays that keep you in charge and keep others under your control. And that's not the way God works. But Jesus isn't done. So the fact that that the disciples didn't wash their hands doesn't make God mad at them. God is bigger and better than that. Back in the day, God gave people the law because he had their best interests in mind. He wasn't trying to keep himself happy by controlling all and manipulating their behavior. And Jesus basically says, don't you see that whatever enters the mouth goes into the stomach and then comes out the body? It's like a biology lesson. But what comes out of a person's mouth? Those are the things that defile them, which basically just means things that put them in conflict with God. We aren't in conflict with God because we accidentally eat the wrong thing. We're in conflict with God when what comes out of our mouths hurts the people that God loves. And I have a spoiler alert for you. God, he loves everyone. That was the whole theme of Jesus' teaching, that God loves you, the person beside you, in front of you, behind you, the person next to you at school, beside you in a car, in your neighborhood, and on and on. God loves people. In fact, you could say that everything Jesus taught really centered on that one idea, how we love God by loving people. But we're not going to stop there, because when Jesus talks about what puts us in conflict with God, he talks about how the source of our offensive words, our deeds, is inside of us. It's the emotions that we're trying to monitor and control. This is what Jesus had to say. Haven't you found this to be true? Everything begins with a thought. Jesus mentions murder and all kinds of other things. And Jesus is saying that all that stuff starts in your thoughts and emotions. And he cares about what could happen as a result of it. And here's how this is connected to what we're going to be talking about for the next couple of weeks. The negative emotion that we try to monitor, the anger that we don't seem to have control over, the FOMO that gets us in trouble and causes regret, the fear that we look at and wish we could just chill out a little bit. It comes from within us, our emotions. So for the next couple of weeks, we're going to start paying more attention to the world inside of ourselves. And we're going to try and form a habit of telling ourselves that it doesn't have to control us anymore. Maybe it's controlled us in the past, and it's led us towards making some mistakes and hurting others. But not anymore. We're going to stop giving it that type of power. Jesus is a way better boss than any negative emotion you feel. And he can give you the strength to stand up to that emotion that's trying to control you. The truth is, it doesn't come naturally. We live in a culture that doesn't really help us see and talk about emotions we're going on inside of us in a healthy way. We can be made to feel like we're weak or overly sensitive for talking about our emotions. But here's the truth. It's good for all of us to learn how to name what emotion we're experiencing and then learn how to keep them from controlling us. Because when our emotions control us, we end up doing or saying things that hurt ourselves or others. Try 2 things I'd love for you to try out. Try to think of the top 1 or 2 emotions that you have the hardest time controlling. These are the emotions that control you more than you'd like. Maybe it's anger, fear, insecurity, jealousy, greed, or anxiety. What is the one emotion that no matter how hard you try, it keeps showing up? Start checking in with yourself this week. I want you to begin asking yourself at the end of each day, how am I really doing? As you look back on the day, I want you to pay attention to the emotions that were a big part of it. Were they positive or negative? If there were some negative ones, are you still holding on to them? What caused you to feel them? Was it a person or a situation? Pay attention to the emotions you are holding on to. Are you mad at someone? Did someone say or do something that hurt you? God didn't create us not to feel. Feeling is good, even the difficult stuff. We just have to figure out what to do next. If you're a Jesus follower, this is a big deal because emotions aren't meant to be the boss of us. Jesus was meant to be the boss of us, and he's a way better boss. And how do I know? In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus said this. And another time, Jesus said this. Jesus is a way better boss than any vibe or emotion we feel. He's worth listening to when it comes to how we handle emotions we have. And if you follow him, you'll find out for yourself. Remember, because of Jesus, emotions don't have to be the boss of you anymore.